Coming up on today's show, we'll update you on the Epic. Epic?
Oh, I like it. It's like Apple and Epic, though.
Yeah,
it is.
They had a baby. They named it Epic. Maybe that's what if that's what happens in this trial. At the end of it, they're like, these companies must merge, and it must be called Epic.
They have like the most brilliant makeup sex, and then they come out of it as Epic.
They're the fanfic between Tim Sweeney and Tim Cook.
They're both named Tim. Oh my God, conspiracy theory.
It writes itself.
I feel like I can't even go back to trying to do a cold open anymore. What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and funny stuff. Every Friday, I'm Andrea Renee, joined by Miss Christine Steimer.
Oh, hello.
And Miss Brittany Braubacher.
Oh, hello.
Welcome, ladies. Of course, if you are just joining us and this is your first episode, we do talk about video games. In fact, what I was going to say is we're going to update you on the Apple versus Epic trial that has begun. And of course, talk about Resident Evil because that game is finally here. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to this month's Patreon producers, Tyler Adams, ProgramAlice, Chewy's Godson, Excess Oddities, Justin Foshee, Punkdefied, Rob Lehnert, Faris Attieh, Marcus Ian Brown, Alex Rigopulos, and Trevor Starkey. And welcome to our Patreon community, Vanessa and Galen Ryder. Thank you so much to everybody who supports us at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. Just as a quick reminder, this is your final month before our hiatus to take advantage of your Patreon rewards. That includes getting the podcast ad-free. That includes special handwritten postcards that Steimer designed this month.
I did. They're beautiful. You'll definitely want to see.
Among other many
Give
other
me a run
benefits.
for my money.
I don't even attempt to compete with your two's artistic talents. I'm like, here's some cute photos of us. Yay.
You're a wise woman, Andrea.
No, yeah, that's infinitely easier. I had so many layers on that PSD. You can see it's just like new layer, new layer, new layer.
I love it. The artistic behind the scenes. Well, welcome everybody to the show. Brittany, it looks like we also have a couple new podcast reviewers.
We have Jojo Hill 27 and Aztec Wolf 96. Thank you so much for your kind words, ladies and gentlemen. They help us in so many ways. And I have to admit, I was like, Aztec Wolf 96. I wonder if that human was born in 1996. And then in my mind, I envisioned them as a child. It's a toddler.
Even though that's a long time ago. If you were born in 2020, you're 21 years old.
Isn't that fucked up?
It's horrifying. I hate those the TikToks that always get me. Is the one where it's like, oh, like, let me check your ID. Oh, no, I can see the one from here. And you're just like, stab through the heart, knife twist, just leaving out to bleed out on the sidewalk.
That's where we're at. If you were born in the 20th century, you're officially always legally able to drink in the United States.
Collective sigh.
Yep.
Well, here we are, everybody. Don't forget, you can be part of the show by submitting your questions to patreon.com/whatsgoodgames, and you can get the show ad-free. Speaking of ads, this episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by A Jar of Ashes and, of course, ExpressVPN, but we'll tell you more about that later. I do want to make note to everybody, this is Brittany's final show before she goes on maternity leave.
Oh, my goodness.
It's very exciting.
Gonna create life.
How are you? How you feeling, Britt? Are you hanging in there? I know you're in the home stretch.
I'm in the home stretch. I feel like a bloater from The Last of Us at this point in my life. I might.
Well, you look fantastic. So if you feel like a bloater, you don't look like one.
I appreciate that. No, it's like, you put some makeup on your face, you smile, you laugh. Being on the show obviously like gets my mood up and it's great. But before today, it was real rough. Just pregnancy is hard, ladies and gentlemen. Have sympathy and empathy for your pregnant friends. It's not easy.
Or pregnant strangers. Be nice to them too.
Yeah,
anybody
yes.
who's carrying child. Yes.
Please. Yes.
But I was saying before we started the show and we were texting back and forth about makeup, I really do want you to do this, Brittany. I know you haven't seen Parks and Rec, but
I have not.
On Parks and Rec, one of the characters, April, at some point lay down, she gets pregnant. And before she goes to the hospital, she puts on like, it's not really zombie makeup, but it's definitely like horror makeup. And they're like, should we take that off? And she's like, no, I put this on to go to the hospital with. And I want you. I feel like of all of my friends, you are the only person that this makes sense for.
I mean, it would flow. It would make a lot of sense. There's a lot of bodily fluids involved in giving birth, and I feel like it would all just come together in one beautiful like photo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I feel like that would be like the most amazing and you thing that I can think of, to be honest.
Okay, I'll see what I can do, Steimer.
See how you feel on the day of. Obviously, there might be some other emotions happening there,
you know?
but.
Throw the Halloween makeup kit in the go bag.
Yeah, just in case. Be like, Jason, this might be your job. I need you to do tutorials. Get him like let him practice on himself a few times before set him up. That way you know it's gonna be good.
Okay, I'll get like little fake blood capsules and like drip them all over my face. It'll be lovely. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
really
God.
like how a plan comes together. So it's great. All right, everybody. We do actually have some video games to talk about because we're going to kind of speed through the show a little bit because not only is Brittany, very pregnant, but I had my second COVID shot. Hooray for Fauci ouchies.
Woo!
So I'm not feeling the best. So let's go ahead and dive right into this Epic versus Apple news. If you guys haven't been following it, the judge actually agreed to let the trial be live streamed, which I thought was great. So that way, if you guys are interested and you want to learn more about it, you can listen in. Some people have been live tweeting it. But thanks to our friends at IGN for recapping what's been going on. Because let me tell you, listening to legalese will put you to sleep. And there was a lot of testimony and things happening over the course of this week. So the first story that we're going to talk about is how the courts were not prepared for the games industry obsessive secrecy, which I just love. I just love this headline. So IGN writes, it's only the second day of Epic and Apple going head-to-head in the courts, and it's already clear that the United States court system was not prepared for the cocktail of high-profile case centered around an industry and its secretive, often to the point of absurdity. You know what, IGN? I applaud you for just calling it like it is. To the point of absurdity. Already there's been an ongoing kerfluffle between lawyers, third parties, and the judge regarding the game leaks occurring via court documents. In the case of Epic versus Apple, it's a matter of concern because a lot of evidence includes internal documents from video game companies that might reference trade secrets, unannounced projects, and so forth. Unfortunately, it's causing a lot of problems in this particular trial. It's unclear who exactly dropped the ball in Epic versus Apple, but the trial as a whole keeps hitting stumbling blocks because third parties are complaining that their classified documents are being leaked to the public via a public folder where all the exhibits are being submitted for perusal because they are technically public documents once they're part of this.
Oh,
this
God.
trial. So that's problematic if you have a confidential agreement signed and you're putting these out for public perusal. And we all know that people who follow the video games industry love to data mine.
They love the snooping.
Aside from the secrecy problems, the trial has also struggled with a number of more normal technical issues that have nonetheless been exacerbated, that's the word, by the fact that hundreds of gamers are interested in the proceedings. Yesterday, the trial started late because the courtroom had to figure out how to mute the public call-in line to stop randoms from calling in yelling free Fortnite and other less appropriate things.
Oh my God.
Playing Travis Scott music for everyone to hear as another example of U.S. courts being unprepared for how game enthusiasts, populace interact with things they're interested in. One of the biggest drops of confidential information was caught by The Verge, showing that Sony really hated the idea of cross-platform play on its consoles, a line of questioning that was touched upon during Sweeney's cross-examination yesterday, though not in as much detail. The Epic versus Apple trial will be ongoing for the next 3 weeks, and aside from the Sony leaks, there has been numerous other weird or fascinating tidbits mined from the examinations and court documents, including how much Fortnite makes, how much Epic spends on exclusives, and details about Walmart's attempt at a cloud gaming service and Epic's plans to put Samus Aran in Fortnite.
I love it. Shout out to Rebecca Valentine, because she's been tweeting a lot of this, and she wrote this article, and she just has such a fun little voice on IGN, and I just love it so much. But it sounds like this is just such a big clusterfuck, ladies, but it's hilarious, and I don't know if it's just at the point in my pregnancy where I just give no fucks, but I love to see it. It's just funny.
Yeah.
It's just entertaining.
And I think what makes it more entertaining is that these are two companies that make so much money just having the pettiest of fights in a very public way that they're both going to walk away from being like, did we need to do this? I feel like we kind of fucked ourselves a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Or really, it's Epic who picked this fight. So
Yes.
Mhm.
They were hoping for someone to back down, and they were like, nay. And now here we are.
yeah.
And this poor judge, because if you read the rest of Reb's article, and like admittedly, like I cut some of it out because it's pretty long, but it's very good. She goes into how like these last minute sealed requests are coming in where they're about to like, you know, cross-examine someone. And then they're like, oh, actually Epic's lawyer's like, you can't do that because there's confidential info in there and we need to seal that. And the judge is like, what the fuck? Like this poor judge, she's probably regretting all of her decisions at this point.
Probably just like, why am I here?
Yeah.
I regret this.
I just would assume that they would have had that all figured out because this was filed months and months ago. This was filed last year, wasn't it?
Yes. That was last year.
So like, yo, what's the legal team doing this whole time if not preparing their partners and all of their confidential documents and having all that sealed stuff ready for the judge? Like, if I was a judge, I would be pissed.
She sounds like she's
Like,
she's
you
over
came
it.
to the big boys court unfucking prepared. What the hell?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Apple, I'm sure, is just sitting back being like, LOL, is this your first time in court, Epic? Because Apple's in court constantly. Just perpetually in court with someone.
Oh, man.
Okay, so continuing on, Britt, you want to talk about what's going on with Sony, Epic, and Fortnite crossplay?
Yeah, okay. So here is some of the like in-depth scoops that we've learned from these unsealed documents. So yeah, Sony makes Epic Games pay for Fortnite crossplay. So remember when Sony finally stopped being the one holdout from Fortnite being cross-platform across all major devices in 2018? Turns out Epic had to agree to cough up extra dough to keep that cross-play support going and still is to this day. During the trial on Monday, a cross-examiner began asking Sweeney some basic questions about how cross-platform play in Fortnite works, especially with regards to who profits from purchases made during cross-wallet features that allow players to buy skins on one platform and use them on others. It was during this line of questioning that Sweeney pointed out Sony's contract had them getting a little extra cash from cross-platform play, specifically when PlayStation Fortnite players consistently bought V-Bucks on other devices but were still gaming on Sony consoles. Quote, Sony has a policy that requires if the ratio of payments across platforms for a given PS user gets out of sync with the playtime, then we have to pay them a commission on other platform revenue. So if someone were primarily playing on PlayStation but paying on iPhone, they'd inaudible compensation to Sony. The cross-examiner had Sweeney confirm that the stipulation was put in place at the time Sony agreed to allow cross-platform play in Fortnite happen on its device. Normally, Sweeney acknowledged when V-Bucks are purchased on one platform and used on another, every platform involved in the transaction gets a cut. But in the very specific cases that he outlined, Sony gets a little more.
So basically, Sony being a big old pain in the ass. And I think this is really funny because, I mean, if I was Microsoft, I'd be a little irked. I'd be like, they get more money?
Why
Like,
didn't we think of this?
Yeah, why? And now it's just like, this is just going to make things more difficult moving forward because I feel like now if everyone knows this, maybe they won't because they'll be like, we won't be the petty partner. We'll be trying to be good partners. But
I doubt it.
But like, come on. You're like, wait a minute. What? I want this stipulation in there. Why don't I have this?
Yeah, it's like what we see happens when somebody at a company comes public with their salary information and then everybody in like the department starts talking to each other and then it just blows up because there's people that are like, why is this person getting paid more or this person gets this deal or what have you? Except on a much bigger scale, obviously, because if Sony is getting an extra cut for crossplay, like, you know, that Phil Spencer was talking to his team being like, excuse me. So, did our biz dev people just not work this out? Like, what happened here? It's going to be interesting to see if there's any, like, fallout or changes to how business is done going forward after this trial concludes. Obviously, we want to wait and see like what the outcome is going to be from the judge. Yeah. But I mean, I think all the things that are coming to light is not necessarily a bad thing. As, you know, Rebecca puts in her original article, that the secrecy is to the point of absurdity. And that's really the case for a lot of like business deals, that so many parts of it are just so private and people get special deals that aren't universal, and you kind of just want things to be fair, but they never are in the business world. So
True.
Yep. And water is wet.
water is wet indeed. Just like Epic spent over $11 million to offer free games for the Epic Game Store. I don't like this. To me, is not a big number.
I was actually, I was honestly
Right?
shocked that it was this low.
Yeah,
With the amount of money they make. Like, yeah, that's not.
totally. We've talked obviously about Epic Game Store for quite some time. Since when they launched, we knew that Epic was heavily investing in exclusives, much to, the Steam fanboys' dismay. Like, they were very upset about it. It was like a big hubbubaloo forever.
Oh yeah.
People being like,
Yeah.
I hate Epic Game Store.
They're
Down with
ruining
Epic."
everything. Brr.
And now they're like, we're on Epic's side, free Fortnite. And I'm like, you guys are exhausting.
Exhausting is a good word for it.
So I'm not going to go too much into this story. Obviously, you guys can check out the full rundown on IGN.com if you want to look at exactly what each of these individual games got. But $11 million to me feels like a low amount.
Yes,
For these-
it does.
Yeah.
It says sounds like the highest paid one was Batman at 1.5 million, and then Subnautica was 1.4. That feels
Good for them.
feels a little bit off kilter maybe, but that's fine.
Yeah, so if there's a chart that got shared or leaked or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yeah, and so Batman was 1.5 million, and the thing is they got 613,000 new Epic user accounts from it, which comes down to an Epic UA cost of $2.44, which was 10% new to Epic. It's kind of interesting how they break that down and like what they're looking for into that. And then you have games like Super Meat Boy, and they paid $50,000 to have that on there too.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at that, like, how much was Team Meat expecting to really make from Super Meat Boy? Because like,
yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I think people see that 50K number, they're like, oh goodness. It's like, well, you gotta look at it.
I'm actually surprised because Batman's not new either. That got them almost 1 million.
I would want to
registers.
know what some of the more new AAAs got them, like Metro Exodus,
Metro.
for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Is
of the
Metro
bigger
on there?
games over the last 2 years since Epic has really kind of gone to town on
No.
this.
It looks like the latest game was the start date was September 26th, which was for a game called Everything. That's as far as back as this goes.
Gotcha.
Lame.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
In
apparently,
high contrast to that,
apparently it matters not because it's chump change for Epic Games because Fortnite has made $9 billion
God.
in 2 years.
gross.
While the Epic Game Store has yet to turn a profit. So clearly someone's leading the way over there. We've always known that Fortnite has been lining Epic's pockets and has allowed them to do what they do. Tim Sweeney has been not shy about that at all. He's very openly said, we want to provide a more favorable split to developers because we can afford it. We want to foster a store where, publishing your game doesn't feel like an egregious overreach of profit sharing. He's spoken publicly about that many times. And so clearly Fortnite's allowing them to make that possible. And kudos to the Fortnite devs. They've been hustling since that game launched to make content constantly.
Yeah. And Sweetie also said that he doesn't expect the Epic Games Store to be profitable for another 3 to 4 years. And they plan on losing $273 million in 2020, $139 million in 2021. But that's okay. You gotta spend money to make money. And when you're Epic, that amount of money is very large.
You're fine.
They've got some money to share.
You got some money to burn for sure.
Being like, yeah, I'm gonna lose $139 million. But that's okay.
I mean, you just have to think of it. It's like to us, that's like $1.39.
That's very depressing, but very true.
Now that you put it like that. But this actually isn't surprising. A lot of major companies lose money on their big ventures before they start to turn profits. Amazon famously was not profitable for many years, and now they're one of the most profitable companies in the world. Same with companies like Spotify and other tech giants, will work and operate at a loss for the first several years while they build their business in order to, become the behemoth that they will hope that they go on to become. And so that's not really surprising to me. I'm just really interested to see kind of where Fortnite can hold its profitability and how long. Because I'm going to admit, I did not think Fortnite would hang on as long as it has, and they've continued to really hit their partnerships hard and do some really cool licensing deals, like the stuff they've done with Marvel, for example. I mean, you can play as Ripley from Alien in Fortnite, which is weird.
What I find strange is like a lot of their partnership deals feel aimed at an older audience, even though most of the people who are still currently playing are younger. Like a Ripley, like somebody who is in high school right now does not know who the fuck Ripley is.
Yeah.
Like that is
That's true.
that is for us, the old people.
It's for the parents playing with their kids, right?
Yeah, I just think that's interesting. It's like, I mean, they obviously are still doing stuff to engage that younger audience as well. But whenever those deals come around, I'm like, this is clearly not the demographic that's largely playing your game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. I was
It
trying to
makes
find
me
an
sad.
article, and I didn't find it. But it was an article about that, what you're talking about, Andrea, how Fortnite is losing players, but that's expected. You know, obviously you're going to have player drop off. People are going to stop buying cosmetics as much, and that how their revenue and profit is going down in Fortnite. But again, like, not surprising.
No, I mean, it's kind of like, wow, you know, at some point it settles, has a settle point.
Right.
It's just not an own left game yet to have it yet.
Agreed.
Well, we will keep an eye on what's going on with Epic and Apple. But now more secrets to share. Britt, what's going on with these confidential Microsoft documents?
Oh boy. So these confidential Microsoft documents, Andrea, have revealed a plan to increase revenue share by 18% for Xbox developers. So again, revealed during the Epic shenanigan. The Epic. According to confidential documents, Microsoft was planning to reduce its 30% revenue share for Xbox Store games by 18%, moving the split between the developers and itself from 70-30 to 88-12. As reported by The Verge, these documents were filed for the upcoming Epic Games versus Apple case in January 2021 and state that, quote, all games will move to 88-12 in calendar year 21. Also stated on the same page is the already announced news that Microsoft will be increasing the revenue share of PC games on the Microsoft Store by the same 18% on August 1st, 2021. This would be a significant move for the console games industry, as Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony currently all have a revenue share split of 70-30. However, a Microsoft spokesperson did tell The Verge that, quote, we have no plans to change the revenue share for console games at this time.
AKA, that shit was private. What the fuck are you out here talking? Why are you telling everybody?
Why didn't y'all
Why you
steal
putting our
that
business
shit?
in the streets? What the heck?
We weren't ready for this yet. We're not ready to talk
There
about
goes our
this yet. It was an idea, okay?
And now they have
Bob
to
just
uphold
floated
it.
it at a meeting one time. Somehow it ended up in these documents.
And now if they don't do it, they're going to look like the bad guys.
That's the
See?
thing. I'm like, this sucks for them because now they have to.
I mean, does it suck for them? You know who else can afford it? Microsoft.
Totally. You're not wrong. But like, it's just in the sense like this forces your hand a bit.
Yeah.
To be like, if you don't do it now, then people will be like, we saw the documents. What happened?
Yeah. I think that this could be a great thing. Obviously, we've touted how wonderful it is that Epic's split is so dev favorable, and how it does feel a little egregious that the platforms take 30%, especially when, you know, the publishing tools are just so much more accessible now than they used to be. It's like, does 30% really make sense anymore?
If you like money.
I mean,
But
listen,
yeah.
I am always for people's intellectual property getting paid for, and that includes intellectual property around hardware. Xbox deserves to get paid for their console. Sony deserves to get paid for their console, and to manage those platforms has a cost.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not saying that there should be no cost. Like, there are people out there that are like, oh, take away the split. And I'm like, no, dude.
No. Yeah.
That's just not free, right? Like, that
yeah.
costs millions, if not billions of dollars to maintain over the course of a console generation. And so, like, there needs to be some kind of a split. But I think where we've always come down is people like Apple, people like Microsoft, you know, like Amazon, these giant companies don't need to take that much because they're already being so profitable in other areas of their business that they could change the sliding scale for devs to give devs a better chance at, you know, surviving.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can't Scrooge McDuck, Andrea, and only 2 feet of coins. You need to have at least like 30 feet of coins.
You need at least 30% to do that Scrooge McDuck action. This 12% shit's going to get you a kiddie pool. It's not going to be an Olympic-sized vault.
Well, you make a compelling argument. So now that you've made that argument, you're right. 30% it is.
Everybody gets 30%.
We shall hear no other arguments. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, thank you to you, Britt, for pulling all of that together. We will keep tabs on what's happening with the trial. Hopefully, we will get some more updates. And we're only going to cover this for the news this week because we're trying to keep the news section short because, as you guys know, we've got 2 important games to talk about in our hands-on section. So we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we are going to talk about what we've been playing. It's scary vampire ladies and cute little slave monsters. All right, everybody. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is the second segment of the What's Good Games podcast, and we have vampires and slave animals to talk about. But first, I want to let you know that this episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by filmmaker, author, and fan of the show, Shaz Mohsin. Shaz has recently published a sci-fi illustrated novella about the relationship between 2 South Asian women titled A Jar of Ashes, which is available now on Apple Books and Amazon Kindle. A Jar of Ashes is book 1 in his sci-fi series titled The Story of Neela, which tells an intimate story about the protagonist, Neela, her role aboard the Andromeda-based space station, Machshaz 72, and her relationship with the commander, Amaris Nazim. Taking inspiration from shows like Star Trek, video games like Mass Effect, and his roots as a South Asian from Bangladesh, Shaz looks to tell an ongoing story about identity, cultural history, and the connections we have with our roots, while exploring LGBTQ+ relationships told through the eyes of people of color. With enough support, Shaz, alongside artist Emily Lampson, hope to have the story of Neela span across multiple books in the years to come. You can support their journey today by getting A Jar of Ashes on Apple Books or Amazon Kindle. Visit the link on his website in the description below for more info, or go directly to shazmohsin.com. That's SHAZMOHSIN.com. A Jar of Ashes is available now on Apple Books and Amazon Kindle. Support Shaz's story by picking up a copy of his book today.
This episode of What's Good Games is also brought to you by ExpressVPN. A few decades ago, private citizens used to be largely that, private. So what's changed? Well, the internet, duh. Think about everything you've browsed, searched for, watched, or tweeted. Now imagine all of that data being crawled through, collected, and aggregated by third parties into a permanent public record. Your record. Having your private life exposed to others to see was once something only celebrities worried about. But in an era where everyone is online, everyone is a public figure. To keep my data private when I go online, I turn to ExpressVPN. Did you know that there are hundreds of data brokers out there whose sole business is to buy and sell your data? The worst part is they don't have to tell you who they're selling it to or get your consent. One of these data points is your IP address. Data harvesters use your IP to uniquely identify you and your location. But with ExpressVPN, your connection gets rerouted through an encrypted server and your IP address is masked. Every time that I turn my ExpressVPN on, I'm given a random IP address shared by other ExpressVPN customers. That makes it more difficult for third parties to identify me and harvest my data, like my late night browsing habits where I'm looking for pillowcase covers, which I told Steimer about earlier today. Listen, sometimes you just browse for pillowcase covers,
Sometimes
and
you just need some pillows.
now everybody knows about it. My business is in the streets. It's true. The best part about ExpressVPN, though, is just how easy it is to use. No matter what device you're on, your phone, your laptop, or even your smart TV, all you have to do is tap one button to get protected. So if you're like me and you believe that your data is your business, keep your pillowcase cover habits to yourself, everybody. You can secure yourself with the #1 rated VPN on the market. Visit expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames and get 3 extra months for free. That's expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames. Go to expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames to learn more. All right, now it's time to talk about what we've been playing, as Brittany so eloquently introduced for us. Listen, I couldn't resist. I had to call them little slave monsters. Do you guys want to start with Pokemon Snap since you've only played a little bit, and then we can dive into Resident Evil, or how do you want to work this?
That's fine.
That's
that
great.
Works.
Okay.
First of all, in this game, they are not slave animals.
Wonderful.
They are very much free creatures. Although they are technically slaves to the AI scripting. But
see, now you're getting deep.
That's
deep.
That's a different story to
Aren't we
tell.
all?
Aren't we all? It's true. We're all weird little computers walking around. It's very strange. But yeah, no, okay. This is... I mean, I'm not like the world's biggest expert on Pokemon Snap, and I did not play it back in the day. I just jumped into it with the new version because I was really excited about the prospect of wandering around and taking pictures, because I like taking pictures in general. And I guess, like, for me, the experience has been a little lackluster. But, like, I don't hate it. I'm just more of like, oh, this is what it is. Okay. I was expecting maybe a little more. So if you were like me and you were like, I don't understand, what is Pokemon Snap? Essentially what you're doing is it's sort of like little Disneyland rides. And you get in your little car and it takes you on a track and it's constantly moving, and you'll basically, it's like being on a safari. I don't know if any of you've done like dumb little safari things in the car where you just drive through like a park and then there's wild animals on either side of you. It's kind of like that, but with Pokemon. And along the way in different areas, there'll be different types of Pokemon. They'll be doing different things. But again, to my AI scripting slave point earlier, every time you replay the track, they're going to kind of go through the same motions. So it is helpful in the sense you're like, oh, that bird flies here at this time. I can maybe try and take a picture of it next time. But on the bad side, it just gets boring because this bird is always doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so I played the shit out of Pokemon Snap back in the day. It was like one of my favorite things to do. I memorized all of the little AI scripted things. And yeah, so like Steimer said, you're on rails in this little cab called the Neo One, and it just takes you through. You can't really control where it goes. The only time you'll ever stop is if a Pokemon decides to run out in front of you and just like block your path. And then, okay, cool, like go on with your bad stuff. I'll just sit here and take photos of nothing. But yeah, so like what's different about this one, I don't know how many levels you've done, Steimer. I think I'm at like
3.
4 or 5. Okay, I'm like at 4 or 5. Is you have different research levels. And so like you have the beach level, just call it that. And you have research level 1 and research level 2. And in each different research level, the Pokemon will be scripted to do different things. You will see different Pokemon. And then you also have night levels, which is the beach, but at night, and you have night level 1 and night level 2. And so that is like a vast improvement over the original Pokemon Snap, which was just like a one and done sort of thing.
Oh, really? It was just like one environment and then that was it?
Yeah, pretty much. And there's similarities too, because in this game you have the fluff fruit, which are like the apples from the first Pokemon.
They don't fucking eat them.
Yeah,
it's so annoying. Yeah. Why did you put these apples in this game and none of the Pokemon go for them? I've had like maybe 2.
Andrea's
I
like
am just chucking apples at everybody in this level. Do you want an apple? Have a fucking apple. You don't want it? Cool. Like they're all very anti-fruit, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. It's very strange.
Some of them want nothing to do with your fluff fruits. Some of them are like, oh my god, thank you. Some of them are like, fuck off. Yeah. So and then in the original Pokemon Snap, you had what were called pester balls, which are like these balls of gas.
What? Are you gassing the Pokemon?
You were like pestering them. Yeah, you were pestering the shit out of them, and then they would, do something like maybe pass out or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you are gassing them, so that makes sense.
You are.
That checks out.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they're called pester balls, and in this one, that's gone, and instead you get what's called like an Illumina ball, and I'm still trying to figure out like what that's all about. But apparently, that's supposed to make some Pokemon act differently. I haven't seen anything too exciting that it makes him do. Part of the thrill of the original one was that you could, bait Pokemon out with the apples, and then you could make them do different things. You could get 2 Pokemon to go head to head, and they might start fighting. One of them might evolve, or you could like knock a Charmeleon into the lava, and it would automatically evolve into a Charizard.
What? That sounds cool.
Yeah. And from my understanding, there's no evolutions in this one, which is kind of a bummer deal.
that is a bummer deal.
Yeah. There's also
I was waiting for the Magikarp, like, who's flopping around out there. I'm like, is he gonna turn into a Gyarados?
Right. Yeah. And I think you could, there was a way you could do that, I think, in the original one, is to have a Magikarp evolve into a Gary, which was like fantastic. You call him Gary if you're hip and cool, Andrea. Heads up.
Sorry, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
well,
not cool,
I need to be
apparently.
hip and cool when it comes to everything
Magikarp.
around, my derpiest boy.
Yeah. And then you had the Pokeflu, and then in this one you have something similar. But I will say the song that plays in this Pokemon Snap, the new one, is creepy as fuck. Steimer, have you unlocked it yet?
No.
Oh, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's
You
like
hate
a demonic.
it? You love creepy shit.
I know, but not when you're playing Pokemon. Like, it's so disturbing.
You're like, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit.
I feel like I'm trying to summon Bloody Mary or some shit when I play this, and it's
oh
like,
my
no,
God.
this is,
I remember those
it's not
days.
good.
Maybe
Like
the
back in-
franchise is telegraphing a turn.
Oh, fuck. I mean, hey, I'm all for a darker Pokemon game. We all know that. But I mean, yeah, like, it's fun. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I would say, like, it's exciting when I see the Gen 1 Pokemon, because, like, that's, like, what I love and what I know, like, the back of my hand. But a lot of these other ones, it's just hard to know what they all are, because you kind of, like, forget, because there's, like, 800 of them at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's chill. I do like maybe an hour of it a night, and I'm like, okay, that was fun. I'm excited. And then by the time the next day rolls around, like, my meter has charged, and I'm like down to play more of it. But
No,
it is what I expected it to be. Nothing more, nothing less. It feels very much like an improvement, which you would hope, because the original one was on N64, and it does have more replayability, which is really fun. But yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of wish that I feel like it would be even more interesting to me, though, if it had those little elements you were talking about. Like, if you felt like you could manipulate the Pokemon a little bit more. Because right now, again, they were like, take these apples and, like, maybe they'll eat them. And I was like, oh, neat. This will be really cool. And I literally have gotten, like 2 Pokemon to be relatively interested in it. And I am just chucking apples, like, left, right, and center. So I just, like, want there to be them to be a little bit more responsive if I am clearly trying to bring something out of them. Right. And then the other thing that I think is funny is just that I think I've talked with another friend who had played a lot of original Pokemon Snap, and he was saying that it's gotten better in terms of, like, what is a good picture? Because me, like, granted, I'm not the world's greatest photographer, but I did take photography in high school, and I have a slight eye for it, you might say. And so, like, the fact that they're basically like, just get as close as possible, and that's a great photo, to me, I'm like, ugh. But is it though? Like, this is your 3-star photo, is just a fucking crop photo of their face. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That's also, like, a remnant of the past, man. It's the same sort of thing. Like, in this one, there's Sandshrew, and Sandshrew likes to roll in a little tight ball and, like, roll around. And I had another photo of Sandshrew, and it was actually, like, he was in the frame, he was centered, he was nice and big. And this other shot I got was just, like, shit show of, like, half a Sandshrew body in a ball rolling past me. And Professor Mirror was like, oh my God, this is great. Good job. Better score. Let's go. And that's why you never know. You just never know what the AI is going to like.
You're like, what is it? And then I had a really great shot that it said didn't count because there wasn't a Pokemon in it, and I was like, there's like 3 Pokemon in there, and I can see on the thing it would have been a 3-star, but because it wouldn't register one of them, I got nothing. And I was like, are you serious? That was a great photo.
Damn you, game.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, and I do think it's a fun thing to kind of just hop into for a little bit at a time. I definitely wouldn't be like, I'm gonna grind and play this game. I think you'd get tired of it very quickly. But just a little bit every day is definitely, it's fun, right? Like, because you're just going around being like, can I get this picture or not? But yeah, they also introduced, like, this is the part that slightly irritated me, is that then they introduced your quote unquote rival, and I'm sure he'll do nothing the entire time. But I was just like, I don't need a fucking rival every Pokemon game. It's really okay. We're fine.
Yeah.
We're good.
I did like that they brought Todd back. So Todd was the original guy from the first Pokemon Snap. That was who you were.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. Todd has glowed up. He used to be a very, you know.
Hey, Todd. How's it going?
Hey, Todd. You grew up a little bit. That's really creepy. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Steimer. Like, it's fun. It's what I expected it to be. Granted, like, when you're a child, I think, because I was 10 when that game came out, you know, Pokemon Snap was this huge, wondrous thing. You know, it was Pokemon on the N64. It was Pokemon in their natural habitat. And I've always wanted a sequel. Now that we have it, like, I'm really happy it's here, and I'm having fun playing it for an hour or so a night. But yeah, I mean, I used to grind the shit out of that game by trying to get better photos, but I just don't know if I have that in me this time around. But like, I'm happy it exists and it's fun to play. Yeah.
I just like, my friend was telling me, he's like, yeah, you could like lure Pikachu onto a surfboard. And I was like, I want to do that. Why can't I do that? And
maybe as we play more, we'll learn the other ways to like to manipulate the Pokemon, and
hopefully
there'll be other things
more.
we can do. Yeah, and I mean, because I know I have the Lumina balls, the Fluff Fruit, the Pokeflute. I'm sure there's gonna be a way to like use the Turbo, which lets you speed up and go quicker. And
but
sometimes
when you break.
I don't know. Maybe you just gotta Pokemon Roadkill, man.
I just get a little stressed sometimes when I'm like, no. You get like, you're trying to like get something, a shot behind you, and then you're like, I guess I just have to replay this level.
You have to do each level so many times. But what's interesting about the Turbo thing is because all the Pokemon are more or less on a script, is that if you kind of speed through an area, I think it increases your chance of seeing them doing something a little different. You know, like maybe Machamp's like
or getting there at a different time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. But it's fun.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, maybe I'll skip this one. I was going to download it, but maybe I skip
You can play a little bit on mine. I brought it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Pretty good.
A game that I didn't skip that normally I would have skipped. Resident Evil Village.
You're doing the Lord's work over there, Andrea. I appreciate you taking one for the team and being the non-scary person.
Well, we had to provide some kind of opinion other than Resident Evil fangirl Brittany Brumbacher's. Not that we needed to, but thank you to Capcom for sending those codes over for us. We appreciate the early access to the game. So obviously the game just came out. This discussion will be spoiler free, though. Britt, I would love to do a spoiler cast with you at some point because I have questions.
Oh, girl, I have so many questions too.
That I can't ask on this podcast because the list that Capcom gave us of things that they want us to avoid in the discussion was very lengthy. They're like, don't talk about this and this and this and this and this thing. Oh, yeah, and this thing too. And I was like, okay, so what can we talk about?
I should pull that list up. Good call.
So Resident Evil Village, obviously, we've talked about on the show quite a few times. It's Resident Evil 8 in the series, and this is a brand new setting, but some familiar faces. We know that Ethan Winters is back as the main protagonist, who was the protagonist introduced in Resident Evil 7. And, of course, there's other familiar faces that you can expect to see that have been announced, like Chris Redfield. So, Brittany, I don't think we really need to recap what's going on here, or do you want to kind of do like a high level of what's happening plot-wise?
Sure. So this obviously is a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. And in Resident Evil 7, Ethan is trying to find his girlfriend or wife, Mia Winters, and she has been missing for 3 years. But all of a sudden,
she's dead.
Yeah. Well, so he thought. Dun, dun, dun.
I was just like, LOL, 3 years, bitch is gone.
Isn't it like you have 72? Was it 48 or 72 hours? I don't remember what it is.
48 hours.
48 really, hours, and statistically, they're probably dead.
Yeah, try 3 years. And then one day, Ethan gets a mysterious message from Mia, and she's like, here's where I'm at, come find me. He finds her. That's when you learn all about the new bioweapon called the Mold and Evelyn, which is like the little girl. And then they escape, or so you think. And at the end of RE7, Chris Redfield saves them, and that's where the game ends. And so in Resident Evil Village, the TLDR is Mia and Ethan are trying to live a new life, get a fresh start. But what would a survival horror game be about a happy couple living a happy life? It wouldn't exist.
It would be horror for some people, but
yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. And you, as you know from the trailers, that they have a daughter named Rose, and Rose gets kidnapped. Mia gets shot up, and Ethan is now trying to find Rose. And
shut up. When you said shut up, in my mind, it's like heroin needles. Like people are just injecting her with drugs.
A little bit more violent than that.
She has a bullet sandwich. It's very violent. Yeah. Yeah. Tasty. Yeah. And the game is about Ethan trying to find his daughter. And that's where you're at.
Neat.
I think that covers.
Is it gonna take him 3 years?
No.
He's gonna get a text message.
Who knows what the
like, hey Dad, is like I'm over here.
That's a great synopsis. You know what's been really interesting about playing this game and like watching the marketing materials is, you know, obviously a bunch of reviews came out this week from other outlets. And I think the consensus is that people are upset that there's not more Lady Dimitrescu in this game.
Yeah.
That she was so heavily
They fell a little
leaned
too
on.
hard for her.
Well, it wasn't their fault. The internet picked up, you know, the love for her after she was first introduced in that first showcase and just ran with it, you know? So,
That's what I meant. I meant like the internet fell harder for her than they
Yeah.
were maybe expecting.
Yeah, it's hype machine run amok a little bit. And clearly, like, Capcom had a design for this game and a story planned out, and they didn't anticipate the internet just going head over heels for this, you know, like, what, 9-foot vampire woman.
But now they know, and now they can just make a prequel of her. That'd be a
Oh my
fun game.
God.
I never
I'd be
thought
down
about
for
that
that.
as an option.
I mean,
but-
like, that would be a super fun game. I mean, I wouldn't play it, but I but I feel like that and her are they her sisters or her daughters? The
Daughters.
Okay, her and her daughters. I think like that would still be a fun, interesting prequel.
and you get some environmental storytelling about kind of like where her story comes from and her origin and, you know, where those girls come from as well, which I think is really interesting. And so there definitely is enough there that they could make a standalone if they wanted to. But I mean, I don't know if that'll
It'll be
happen.
called Step on Me. Resident Evil.
Ooh.
Amazing. But what I loved about my experience with the game, and I'm really dying to hear how you as a long-term Resident Evil fan really felt about it, is me going in having only ever finished one other Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and played only halfway through RE3 Remake. I played like the tiniest bit of RE6 and then did not play any of the previous Resident Evils. Too spooky for me. Is that I really liked the diversity of storytelling in this game, how it felt like it took some of the exploration-based puzzle-solving elements that a lot of like old Resident Evil games are known for, and that we saw a lot on display in Resident Evil 2 Remake. And they also mix it with some areas of the game that were much more combat focused, but it never felt like it was over the top combat. It never felt like I was in like a spray and pray situation where I just like had to shoot as many bullets as possible. You still had to be very thoughtful with your resources, even when there was sections with more enemies. And I think that that obviously is a testament to Resident Evil's roots being one of the original, if not the original, survival horror game, and really forcing players to think about how they're going to approach a situation with what resources they have. And I liked that. I felt like it was a really nice balance between, you know, I get this really cool, slower, spookier vibe, and then I get to have a nice break in like the really kind of psychological horror to get something that's a little bit more action focused. But what did you think about the balance, Britt?
So again, like I know I need no introduction when it comes to Resident Evil. I am a longtime fan. I've been playing since the 90s when the series was first introduced. And I admittedly am someone who loves the story of Resident Evil. I love the lore of Resident Evil. I'm always fascinated to know how the game is going to tie itself back into that. And is it going to tie up loose ends? Are we going to get explanations for this, that, and the other? My favorite Resident Evil is Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake. I love the original style. I wasn't the biggest fan of Resident Evil 4. And I'm saying all this so like people who know Resident Evil like know where I'm coming from. So when it came to Resident Evil Village, I absolutely loved the first 5 or so hours of this game. Like, and this is most of the stuff that you see in the demo, so like I'm not going to be spoiling anything, don't worry. But it's, you know, when you get to the village for the first time, it's getting to Lady Dimitrescu's castle, it's the backtracking in there. It reminded me so much of the original Resident Evil Spencer Mansion that I was like, oh my god, this is everything I've ever wanted. And especially when you look at how Resident Evil 7 reinvented the franchise, especially coming from Resident Evil 6, which is like probably the worst Resident Evil game in existence. So with all of that said, like expectations were really high for Village, and the first like 5 or so hours to me was like what I wanted from this game. After you wrap up your business in certain parts of the game, it opens up a little bit more to different set pieces, and that is when I would say like my love of the game kind of like got demoted to like a very like good like I like this a lot, but I didn't love it. And I think that's because, you know, you only spend like I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and a half in these different areas. And to me, that wasn't enough time to flesh it all out and really tie in the story in a way I had hoped it would tie in with Resident Evil 7 and some of the events that happened in there. Instead, what happened is we were introduced to new antagonists and new story elements, which, I mean, like, nothing wrong with that. But when you have so many loose ends anyway, introducing more is just like, it kind of, you wonder like why, and especially when you get the feeling that you're not going to see a lot of these characters or a lot of this stuff again. And for that reason, like, I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, because I really did love the game and I really enjoyed my time with it, but it wasn't this tie-in that I thought it would be, especially because in RE7, like, we learned some really interesting things and some really like new twists on some of the old Resident Evil that like we've come to know and love, and then that stuff is just like not even talked about at all in Village. And so that was a bit of a bummer for me. But that said, there was one part in one of these new set pieces, and it was definitely a break from the traditional Resident Evil formula, like this part of the game scared the living shit out of me. And like, here's the thing, I don't get freaked out playing Resident Evil. I just don't. But this was one moment where I had to take off my headphones and like take a beat and process and just be like, okay, this is fucking disturbing, but I'm going to take a breath. And then I was able to hop back into it. And I've had a lot of people who review the game also reach out, and yeah, like, without a doubt, they know immediately what I'm talking about. So
are you talking about the one that's a nod to PT, like in homage?
Yeah.
Because I've seen other people describe it as that, and I mean, I feel like that's semi-accurate. Obviously, like, the story is very different. When I say an homage to PT, I don't mean like they're taking the story elements of PT and using them, because obviously that's based on Silent Hills, but like that formula of like exploration and things like that kind of like slows the pace down in a way that I was not ready for either. And you warned me, God bless you.
I did.
Because I'm texting Brittany all the time being like, help me.
I'm happy I was able to warn you, because I was like, listen, like, if this fucks with me, I have a feeling it's gonna fuck with my dear redheaded wonder Andrea. But
yes,
yeah, and I mean, it was so brilliantly done, and that whole section was so suspenseful, and again, like, a testament to what Capcom can do. And it was fine, but it almost didn't feel like Resident Evil-y enough for this like Resident Evil snob for it to be there. And that's just, you know, coming from like the background that I have. But anyway, I've talked a lot. Andrea, I'll let you like respond to anything that I said.
No, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. I think that, you know, while I enjoyed the balance, there certainly was certain parts of the game that felt like they maybe labored a bit too long on them. Like the last major section in the factory, I think was too long. I think like the balance could have been a little bit more even between the 4 major sections instead of being really short in one, very long in others. I mean, I'm like you. They could have put the whole game in her castle, and I probably would have been happy with that.
Right.
But let me tell you, I saw every inch of that castle because I ran many times to the same hidey hole, and the same hidey hole dropped me like in a part of the castle that made me have to take a very long way to get back around. Very long way to get back around because I would just panic. I'd be like, oh no, they're coming to get me, run.
Oh my god, yeah, because as you've seen, like, and this is not a spoiler again, like Lady D like likes to chase you. It's one of those things where you just hear those
slow chase.
You
hear the heels clomping.
Yeah. Yo, you do.
Clunk.
And then you're like, oh my god, where's my safe space? And
like, I need it covered fast.
I do admit and agree with some of the criticisms that they wished she was a little bit scarier, but it's so tough when you have a villain like Mr. X who is just so terrifying as a video game's villain go, and he just like his clomp was just really menacing, and her high heel like clomp is you can definitely tell when she's coming for you, but it's not. I didn't feel the same fear, and maybe that's just because
the internet loves her so much.
Well, that's part of it, right? Like they've romanticized this villain, and you don't really get to see like her dark side until you're in the game. And you know, obviously, no, we're not going to spoil any of that for you guys. But
she's not a good guy. she's
well, I think also part of it is that it's during the daytime, right? So the game is
Vampire is less scary during the day.
right? And so there's these sections where you go into like this courtyard in the castle where you move between sections of the castle through a courtyard and you're like out like in daylight. And
That makes it less scary for sure.
yeah. And so I think that helped keep it from being overwhelmingly frightening. But I think people who, like you, Britt, who live
Want
for
to
that
be that.
fear were probably a little like let down by the fact that the environmental storytelling maybe wasn't amped up as much as it was. Because I guarantee if all of the windows were dark like they are in RE2, like going through the mansion in RE2 and having it just be like nighttime and freaky, like I could definitely see it being scarier. But
Also, I'm curious, like, because I saw the clips of Mr. X like wandering around, but like he never says anything, right? Like you don't really know anything about him. He just shows up and like starts chasing you.
Yeah, and then that's exactly like a good point to bring up, because the thing is, I love Lady D. I think she's fantastic. Like I'll get stepped on her or whatever, but more than anything, I just think she's a really like fascinating villain. And I think some of the way she talks and the way she interacts and the way she carries herself, like I was never really terrified of her. It was more of like, oh shit, like I hear that coming, like I better like run away. But it wasn't like that dread that you get from Resident Evil 2, like as Andrea was saying, where that game is just like the epitome of atmospheric horror. Like every corner you turn, every corridor you go down, there's some blood dripping somewhere, or there's someone hanging from the ceiling, or there's some zombies banging on the window. And in this one, like it just wasn't. It wasn't as butt clenching for sure. The only time I really clenched was I can't say that. I just said it. That's fine. No one knows what I'm talking about. I think it's fine. I think I can say what I said.
Just bleep the word. It will be funny, even if it's not required.
I do want to ask you, Britt, how you felt about the Duke. So this is a character that we saw introduced in the showcase, of course. He is the vendor in the game where you can upgrade your weapons, sell him items, buy munitions, etc., etc. I, for one, appreciated that he was always there around every corner. I was like, oh, Duke, it's so good to see you again.
I know. I did too. I loved him. I can't figure out the Duke. So the Duke friends, think of the merchant from Resident Evil 4, the what are you buying guy who would open his trench coat up, and at first you're kind of freaked out, and then you're like, actually, you're a friend. It's fine. Yeah, so the inventory and the whole item upgrade system, it harkens back to Resident Evil 4, where you find valuables in this game, you sell valuables, you can upgrade your weapons, you can upgrade your health, you can upgrade your defense, you can do all sorts of fun things with our jolly man, the Duke. I thought he was a really interesting character, and I would love to learn more about him and what his whole deal is, because like clearly he ain't no normal human.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And he's just like chilling with all these like super villains and has some kind of, you know,
he's like, I have a merchant immunity.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
I
no
sell
one
them
bothers
blood.
him. It's interesting though. And I, you know, as somebody who doesn't lean into the horror as much and prefers the more action focused parts of these games, like really appreciated that part because it allowed me to take a beat and like slow down from anything that was like getting like a little overwhelming as far as terror goes, to be like, okay, I'm just gonna hide out in this room with the Duke for a little bit and sell you some stuff and upgrade my guns. And I was playing on casual, like Avi. So I never felt like I was ever so desperate for materials that I had to sell things or make hard decisions. It was only until I got to the late stages of the game where I just ran out of inventory space and my trash panda ways wanted me to keep all of the guns. And I just like could not keep all the guns.
You're like, how do I hold all of these?
Because I was like, I have all of these slots for bullets because yes, give me all the bullets. But then like I have all these guns. But I
warned you that you'd have to sell those bitches.
And you did. And I did. I do feel like they fell into the common problem that any game that has an upgrade system with weapons falls into, is that you spend all the game collecting and buying, and then you get the really good stuff at the very end, and you have so little time to actually use it. But obviously there's like New Game Plus or whatever. You can bring your upgraded stuff with you. But at the same time, it's like I want a meaningful way to use the stuff I spent the whole game grinding for.
Yeah.
Like, I went through every freaking room looking for scrap and stuff, and I got all the treasures.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue I came across too, is you and it's hard because you do have limited lei. I think that's how you say it. It's the money, the currency. And you wonder, like, how do I upgrade this smart? Like, what do I upgrade? How do I upgrade it? Because you might find one weapon, one spot, and then maybe an hour or two later, you'll find an even better version of that will ultimately surpass the prior version, no matter how much you upgrade it. And so you have to, like, it kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety. It's like, what do I do here? And then, you get to a point where you're like, well, I can't hold on to everything because I too, as Steimer knows, likes to hoard. I like to hoard shit. And I came across an issue.
My lovely little hoarders.
Yes.
That's what we are. I was on the Kind of Funny Games cast where we talked about the Kind of Funny Resident Evil Village review. And all those guys, like, they all felt the same, that they had too much. They always had enough. Like, they were never scrounging for bullets, for med kits, for anything.
Did they say what difficulty they were playing on?
They were playing on standard.
Okay.
So even with that, though, and I think there's a point. It's kind of like grinding in an RPG, right? Where if you are playing Resident Evil, in air quote here, correctly, you backtrack, you clear every room. And the point of doing that is to make sure that you do feel a little bit of OP. Like, you do want to feel like you're really like, oh yeah, like, because I worked so hard toward this, I am prepared and I'm going to kick your ass. Not because the game just gave you too much ammo.
Right.
And so
it's because you got every doodad on a shelf. That was
got every doodad
that John and I had going back through rooms, because, man, it would bother me so much if there was one room that was red on the map. And
man.
I was like, I missed a doodad on a shelf somewhere. I gotta go back. Gotta go back and look at that room. Just like pointing down at the corners. I'm like, where is the doodad that I need to clear this room? And there would be gunpowder on some random shelf somewhere.
Or there'd be something stuck in the wall that you'd have to shoot down. Or so I would say, like, a little pro tip, if you're looking for like a true blue, like, hard, like, I gotta scrounge survival horror experience, you might want to bump the difficulty up to the next level. That's above standard, whatever that one is. Hard.
Probably hard. Yeah.
Probably hard. It's probably called something different.
Yeah, because there's village difficulty, which was that part of, like, the special edition? I don't remember.
I think that's called the Shadow of Nightmares, I think, is the hardest difficulty.
Ooh,
and I don't know if that
spooky.
comes. Yeah, I think that might come with the trauma pack, which is you get in the deluxe edition. And
wait, I'm sorry, it comes with the deluxe edition?
Trauma pack.
You can't get the difficulty level with that. Doesn't make
I don't
any
know
sense.
if you. I don't know. I think how it might work is you might get Village of Shadows difficulty with the trauma pack, or you might just unlock it after you finish the game. But if you want to start immediately on Village of Shadows, I think I might be talking out my ass. I don't go anywhere near that difficulty, so I stay
Village
far
of
away.
Shadows. That's what it's called.
Yeah. But
I'm looking it up.
But yeah, like, I think
Godspeed to those people.
Overall, Resident Evil Village, and I've said it, like, it's a great game. I think it's a great survival horror game. Is it my favorite Resident Evil game? No. Is it one of my most is it up there? No, not top 3 by any means.
Is it top 5?
I'd have to do a whole list, and I don't know if I would put it in top 5 either. Probably it
There's
might be around
only 8
5
of
or
these
6
games.
Oh, there's a lot more.
Well,
you have the Revelations, you have Code Veronica,
yeah.
Zero, including all the things.
All those.
But what about like the standard 1 through 8? Where would it?
Standard 1 through 8. So number 1 would be 2. So it would probably go. Number 1 would be 2. Oh, this is getting confusing. Number 2 would be 1. Then number 3 would probably be OG 3, and then you have 7, and then maybe 7, maybe 8. So that's 4 or 5. I don't know. It's
okay, yeah,
that's
so like middle
place.
of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle of the pack.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, and the internet likes to take that and be like, oh, so you thought the game was bad? You thought it was just an okay game? Like, no, I said it's like a great game. It is. But again, like, when I play Resident Evil, I'm looking for something very specific. I love the story and I love the characters and the lore. If it weren't for those things, like, I probably wouldn't be all about Resident Evil the way I am. And I think Capcom's kind of at this weird middle point where it's straddling this line of, do we appease the long-term fans who have been with us since like day one, who know all about the Umbrella Corporation and all about the mold, blah, blah, blah. Or do we kind of make a game that appeases more to newcomers that are just really into a really cool survival horror experience? And the problem with trying to like blend the two is because there's so much history with this game. is that you kind of get to a point where they can't dive too much into the story and the lore because then people will be confused all the fuck.
Yeah.
Without introducing some new elements that everybody can understand, which then the people who have been with the game forever are like, why are you doing? It's kind of getting a little Kingdom Heartsy on me, friends. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little Kingdom Heartsy, where it's like, what are you doing? And I mean, I'm sure they have some vision and faith be in ye, Capcom, but I'm just not sure like where they're going from here. You know?
Yeah, when you were talking about like, oh, I thought they were going to tie up more ends from Resident Evil 7, I was like, I kind of feel for them in the sense that you can't without like recapping that for new players.
And they did. They had a little movie at the beginning of the game
nice.
that I watched. You can choose to skip it if you played the game. But I never played RE7, and they're like, do you want to know about the events of RE7? And they do like a nice little recap movie.
Oh, that's good. That's smart.
They do a nice little recap. And there's also like an 80-page document. Andrea, I don't know if you saw it. It's under like bonuses. It's called, and granted, like each page is maybe, it can be like 2 sentences. So it goes by quick. But it took me a good like 15-20 minutes to read. It's called like the Baker Estate Report. And it essentially recaps and goes into things that happened after Resident Evil 7 that we are just now learning in the form of this like e-document. It's in the game. I think it's under bonuses or options or something. And I mean, that was fascinating because there's some pretty big like revelations that happen in that document. But again, like it's just in the document that most people are probably going to skip because they're not going to know it's there. So it's kind of like an interesting approach. And I get it. Like it's hard when you have this many games to like try to tie up those loose ends while still trying to, you know, be attractive to new players.
Yeah.
Right? It's
and
a hard,
introduce something new and interesting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why I hope we can do the spoiler cast before I pop, because my God, I have so many questions.
All right.
So many.
Well, I mean, we're working on a very short timetable, so we should do that sooner than later. But this has been really fun talking with you about this. It's great to know, I think, for people who follow your Resident Evil commentary specifically, for them to kind of get your temperature on where you feel. And I do agree with you. I think from what I've seen that there's kind of 2 camps of people who like Resident Evil, which is why Capcom is clearly trying to straddle the line. Right? To appease both. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, I really enjoyed my time with the game as somebody who's not super familiar with the lore. And while I was confused at the end of the game when they, you know, kind of tied some strings from the main Resident Evil franchise back into what was happening in 8, I was like, oh, these are a bunch of people that I don't know. I think Resident Evil fans will get it, and we'll have more to say on the spoiler cast when we can talk about it all openly. But for now, we want you guys to be able to experience it all for yourself, if, you know, that's in the cards for you.
Go get stepped on. Have a good time.
Run for your life and enjoy it.
I do want to say one thing, because I also don't want people to twist my words. There are some things that are tied up from RE7. So I'm not saying there's not. There's some pretty...
You were just hoping for more.
There are some cool things where you're like, oh, that's interesting. Was that really the info we needed? Probably not, but still very, very interesting. And also some plot things that were discussed that tie back to like RE was just like handled in such a weird way that it should have been this huge revelation, but it wasn't. But okay, I'm done.
That's fair. On the spoiler cast, I'd actually be curious to get both of your thoughts. I'm not going to join it, but like y'all have fun. On if you felt like the stuff that they set up was enough for you to get the references that she'll be talking about, to be like, oh, this was where I thought they did a good job of this, or like, actually I was hoping for whatever from Resident Evil 7. It's like, because basically what I would like to know is whether or not somebody new coming in, even watching that intro cutscene, is like picking up all of the threads from among from
definitely not all the threads. I don't think that would ever be possible, just not because of how convoluted Resident Evil storylines are.
Give me a few threads.
Yeah. But I did okay, because like Britt said, they introduced so much new stuff that, you know, I could follow that relatively easily. All right, more to say in a future episode. Again, I feel like we just got to stop here, because I think we're getting to a point now where we're going to accidentally spoil something, and we don't want to do that.
I'm not. I haven't played the game.
But thanks everybody for listening to this episode of What's Good Games. We appreciate you supporting the show. And hopefully you guys will have a great weekend playing either Pokemon Snap or Resident Evil, or maybe something completely different. maybe you're playing that new season in Call of Duty, which I'm excited to check out. Or maybe you're like me and you're anxiously awaiting the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is coming out next week.
Huzzah!
Yay! So prepare yourself for Mass Effect talk, people. It's happening. All right, everybody.
Bye,
Bye, everybody.